Welcome back to the morning show. Now, fake news have become a global problem in recent years. It was reported earlier in the year that Malaysia had passed an anti-fake news bill. Last week, of course, the French amps had also adopted the fake news bill. Now, a News 24 article by investigative journalist Jean Leroux exposed that big brands such as banks, insurance companies, and even car manufacturers have been caught funding fake news websites through advertising. Moreover, governments around the world have begun a clampdown on fake news, blaming them for propaganda and even influencing the outcomes of elections. Now, joining us in studio to discuss this possibly damning information to such big brands is the MD of #SouthAfrica, Conrad Travers. David, Conrad, thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Look, yeah, good to see you. I think we should start, at the beginning, really. How does one even begin to identify a fake news site?
These websites have progressed a lot over the years, and to the simple eye, it's very hard to figure out. But you've got to do a bit of snooping. You can't just read the article that you go to. You've got to look around. What are the other supporting articles that are there? What type of ads are being placed? And then for you to try and go back to a reliable source just to see, because if something's on the news, you'll see it on at least a few other platforms and channels.
But is fake news a new phenomenon? I mean, Clement was saying in your intro that, governments have been using propaganda for years. And it's just that, I guess people weren't educated enough at the time to differentiate, especially when we give in the context of South Africa, where there was apartheid. We've had propaganda.
Bombs, yes.
So, Wayne, what are the origins of fake news, would you say, in South Africa?
Well, I would think fake news goes back as far as media itself, across industry.
Yeah.
And it's about how we've got to discern what we read and what we take in. I think as South Africans, as Africans on the continent, we need to be a lot more vigilant what we read, how we intake it, and not just jump on the hype that, oh, my friend shared this, maybe I should just share it immediately.
Right.
Be individual, understand something on your own perspective, and it's very important. It's the age of understanding. We've got to start understanding what we consume now.
Yeah.
I mean, from my side, I understand governments around the world trying to prohibit fake news sites as far as possible. But I also think that is it not an aimless fight? Surely this is the way the world is going. We all have cell phones and social media, which at some point makes all of us feel like keyboard warriors and journalists in our own right.
That's
and we
true.
feel like we can report. And also from a marketing perspective, surely these fake news sites must have given some case study results to show that in fact they can form the new sort of marketing dynamic.
Yeah, look, back in the 90s, I was fortunate to be at a computer since 92, the internet.
Yeah.
And if you had a basic website where you ran little ads along the side, you could make some decent money every month. And I think that's a lot what these sites are doing. They're just pushing traffic to get you there so that you could see the ad, even if you don't see it, that you're just there. So it's more about profit. And I, as like #SouthAfrica MD, all our clients, that even some people ask us, can we just buy followers? We're more about the quality of content, about pushing the right sentiment. It might take a longer journey, but we're doing things the right way. It's ethical. It comes down to ethics.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the credibility of these big brands that are now implicated in this digital scandal.
Yeah. I think you heads of digital of these companies, you either need to give me a shout, but you need to start looking at what ethical lines you're willing to cross over. You can advertise and do things around the world, maybe dark web, maybe on these fake sites, but as brands, as South Africans, we need to start steering the conversation in the right direction.
The argument has been, we didn't know. Yeah. Is that really honest?
Come on now. Look, I as a business, a medium-sized business in South Africa, I can pick up conversation that people overseas are talking about me. You tell me these multi-million companies don't have media monitoring softwares to pick up tracks. I'm sure they do. And if not, guys, I think maybe let's not complain. Let's look at stepping in and correcting the situation and move forward in a right way. We have a chance to grow South Africa for the right reasons. We've come from a bad past. We all can understand that.
Well, some brands have actually accused, the circulation of fake news tainting their credibility. But for some brands like Nando's, for example, I mean, you know how they're so monotonous and so famous for all these sarcastic. We love them for it, right? With those sarcastic, catchy phrases. But when there's a fake meme going around, they just kind of let it hang because they know this is the language that we use. So can it work for the benefit of a brand in that instance?
Yeah, look, it can work for the benefit. You've got to look at what's the pros and cons of it. But it's always about you as a brand owning the conversation. And you've got to ensure that if your logo is used, and we see lots of people mimicking brands' logos, call these things out, list them and flag them to
Yes.
these social media digital companies.
Right.
We're at the time where we can now relate immediately rather than try and submit letters and wait for responses and say, no, we're waiting for someone else. Own the conversation. And if you can't manage that conversation, release a public video from your official accounts being like, guys, we don't endorse this message.
Right.
So
Quick and fast.
what we've seen is that you know, people love a story, and it's this love that people have for stories that kind of encourage these websites, which encourage advertisers. But we're now seeing, I mean, Paul O'Sullivan accused the Sunday Times, which is I'd say a newspaper with one of the most integrity in the country. And are we seeing this shift that people are understanding that the headline sells, and to sell advertising, are traditional kind of media operators also now being encouraged and to perpetuate fake news? Is this a real thing?
Look, 20 odd years ago, I'm sure the traditional media space never expected digital to be what it is today.
Yeah.
So they need to push. They've got bills to pay. They've got to be able to get these headlines out there. And I think if it's catchy, that's what sells these days. It's sad, but
it's very sad. But Clement, I mean, you're a writer as well, and I wonder the responsibility that also consumers of media have in critical thinking. It's all well and good for expecting the one on the other end to have the ethical and moral, responsibility to, of course, write what's proper news, objective, non-biased. But in terms of a consumer, what responsibility, I suppose, do I have in critical thinking and in responsible reading?
Yeah, and I suspect one of the responsibilities is to actually also us as consumers to be aware of, and I'll give an example of the news sites. I mean, the News 24 branding.
Yes.
And, fake news sites will somehow use something that's sort of similar to the colors and the branding. They won't call it SABC or News 24, they may call it News 26. But that's easy for you to just with similar colors. So I think you're right, and I think you'll agree there, Conrad, that there's also a level of responsibility from the part of a consumer as well to be able to identify and critically question before they can consume something as credible.
yeah. So what I always do, just because I'm a techie, I look at the details of it. So I would look at the hyperlink itself, that www site at the top. Look at what are all the other affiliates that are popping up there. And it's going to become a lot more challenging as time goes by. And I think this is where our news agencies in South Africa need to be that anchored support and fight the conversation along the way.
Are we going to see these sites closing down anytime soon?
Yeah.
It's the same as asking are memes going to stop tomorrow.
That's a no.
And that's a big no.
But then what then of countries like France, for example, that are trying to implement these rules? How will they be governed? How do you think? Do you think that it is a governable process?
Yeah, look, it is. It's like if you find a house and you know that they're making drugs in it, you'll send the law enforcement. So it's us now finding these internet websites
and reporting,
tracking them and shutting them down, working together with South Africa's regularities, and if not, working with global entities. So look, we're living in the future now, these digital positions. Laws are still being put in place. Its actions are got to be taken now from the ground level. And if brands are operating in these unethical spaces, it's up to them to decide what they want to do going forward. And guys, the world needs us to share better sentiment. We need to look at growing the economy of this country a lot more. Let's focus attention more on not just manipulating people just to get a quick sale, but doing the true sale for quality.
Because I wanted to understand also in terms of regulation. I know that the French have imposed more of a bill, but in terms of South Africa and the press ombudsman, are they looking into regulating the internet? I can imagine it's a very difficult one task to take on. But in terms of fake news and ensuring that their countries, or rather South Africa in this instance, is protected against fake news, what's the press ombudsman doing about this?
Look, they can try and shut down one side and then another one can open up the very next day or 10 others. It's a bit of a hard space they're playing in. I can't really quote for them as a regulator. At the end of the day, I'm just a citizen in South Africa.
Yeah.
Well, maybe as a citizen, help me out. I run a small business. My small business utilizes agencies such as yours. Those agencies go and place ads on various websites. Who goes to jail when these laws are placed? Is it me or is it you? Just for control. Who's going?
Well, your name is going to be mentioned as Jason Goliath seen on this sort of stuff. It's not going to be Jason Goliath as per his ad agency.
But the middleman, so you think I'm going?
Yeah, we'll come visit you though,
I hope you guys have realized in South Africa that your agency will throw you out as soon as the cops come.
And listen, we always think about corona. We don't need overpopulation of these cells.
No,
I mean, we're just talking about it now, so we're not trying to get you into it.
Look, thank you so much, man. Conrad
Thank you.
David, MD of #SouthAfrica. That was quite enlightening. So thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick break now, and when we return, we're talking illegal abortions in our weekly discussion of babies and bellies. The morning show returns after this.